regular Board of Education meeting to order at 7:03. Before we get started, forgive us for being a couple minutes late, but the culinary students provided the board and administrators with dinner before the meeting for Board of Education Appreciation Month. So I just would like to bring our chefs out so we can acknowledge them before they have to clean everything up. We have Chef Vincent Salvatore, Allison Nucky, Maddie Resk, Kyle Jocks, and Abby Chesky. Thank you. The dinner was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, now we are going to do our Pledge of Allegiance, and this evening we have our Richmond Education Foundation members are here to award mini grants to some of our staff members. So if our board members, they've agreed to come up and lead us in the pledge. And those of you in the audience who are recipients of a grant, if you'd like to come up and join us, please do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, next, our mission statement. Chris?
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community. I'll do roll call. Jessica is absent with notice. Kyle?
Here.
Angela?
Here.
Sherry?
Here.
Margaret?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we proceed further, the Board of Education has a statement that they would like to make with respect to the recent complaints made against the superintendent. This is a statement that will be available if anyone would like a copy of it when the meeting is over, and it's also going to be released to the Voice newspaper. As many of you know, the school district has been the subject of recent media reports arising in connection with employee complaints concerning the district superintendent, Brian Walmsley. These complaints, which were received last fall, generally allege that Mr. Walmsley's managerial practices with certain employees were harassing and otherwise violated board policy. To help with our investigation, we enlisted the assistance of the Troon Law Firm, which has served as school board counsel for many years. At our direction and with the consent of the administrator complainants, the investigating attorney, who had no prior involvement with the school district and had never spoken to any district employee prior to her involvement, conducted an extensive investigation in the following weeks. That investigation included speaking to all of the complainants and other witnesses with knowledge of the circumstances and reviewing relevant documentation in connection with the allegations. Her findings and legal conclusions were summarized in a detailed report and legal analysis, which was provided to the Board of Education for consideration in a closed session which occurred on January 2nd of this year. After extensive discussion, the board adopted a resolution which did not substantiate the complaints, but found that remedial efforts should be undertaken to address employee concerns. These remedial efforts are in the process of being implemented in the district. We are keenly aware of some of the rumors and inaccurate information circulating in social media and the community, ascribing improper and even nefarious motives to the actions of the Board of Education or administration. Responding to inaccurate or false narratives can be very difficult due to the sensitivities of circumstances like this. For example, the school district has had numerous requests seeking release of the investigative report. We have determined that we will not be releasing that report because it contains highly sensitive and detailed statements from more than a dozen witnesses whose identities we want to protect. Likewise, the report is subject to the attorney-client privilege, which could be breached if we released even parts of the report. Michigan law is clear that we have such authority and we think this is the proper decision under the circumstances. Making difficult or unpopular decisions is an inevitable part of serving as a school board member. And we realize that some in this community may ascribe improper motives to the board in making this decision. Nothing could be further from the truth. We took this complaint very seriously and spent many hours going over the investigation and its accompanying report prior to coming to our conclusion. We ask that you remember and respect the fact that we are not just school board members, we are also your friends, neighbors, and community members who have chosen to devote our time and energy to making Richmond Community Schools and this fine community it serves the very best it can be. Anything less than this serves no purpose and only hurts this great school district, its employees, and the children we educate. Although we are not able to discuss the investigation, each of us welcomes your comments and suggestions, and most importantly, your continued support as we implement remedial measures that we anticipate should address the concerns that have come to our attention. We are confident that we will be able to move forward from this event in a productive way, and we will all be better for it. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Chris, was that you?
Yes. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next, a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Mr. Walmsley?
There were no questions regarding the claims and accounts. We have a couple of new hires, Clarence Miller, Jamie Paxton, and Jill Brulham. PM Child Care, JV basketball coach Jamie Paxton, and boys basketball. It's been several months since we've had personnel reports, so some of these are a little older. We do have some resignations. Karen Kuka, if you recall, was hired and then some personal situations came up, so she actually resigned, never starting from when we rehired her. Marie Cass resigned from the child care position at Lee, but continues to work as a Title I paraprofessional. Jill Gaybridge resigned as a special ed paraprofessional, and Bridget Shoeboy resigned as secretary for the Richmond Middle School.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is True Blue Moment. It's a portion of our meeting where we like to take the time to talk about things, great things that are happening in our school district. And as I mentioned before, it is School Board Appreciation Month. And Mr. Walmsley?
As citizen leaders, individual school board members face complex and demanding challenges. They are ultimately described as having the most important volunteer job in our country, facing the toughest challenges in elected American government. That school board members are often just ordinary citizens with extraordinary dedication to the nation's public schools. All Michigan citizens should recognize the vital contribution of these men and women and the crucial role they play in educating our children. The job of the school board member is tough. Long hours, few thanks, and far between. Too often we are quick to criticize school board members without really understanding the complex nature of the decision. We often forget about the personal sacrifice school board members make, including their families. Board members contribute hundreds of hours each year in leading our district. The time spent in board meetings represents just a small fraction of the hours school board members spend leading our district. The month of January marks School Board Appreciation, an annual event every year. This is a time to show our appreciation and begin to understand how local trustees work together to prepare students for tomorrow's leaders, to be tomorrow's leaders, On behalf of the students, staff at Richmond Community Schools, I want to thank you for your dedication and sacrifice that you choose in making Richmond Community Schools a better place and shaping our leaders of tomorrow. In front of you are gifts, in front of your place settings are gifts from each of the buildings as well as central office in an effort just to show how much you are appreciated and valued in our district. as well as I have a certificate of appreciation. So when I call your name, if you would come up, please.
Christine Perka. Angela Pacino. Jessica was not able to be here tonight. Kyle Simmons. Margaret Telton. Sherry Zhu. As I said, each of the buildings put together a basket for you. A lot of it is, there's some literature in there that you may want to use when you go into the classrooms in March for March 3. So again, I can't thank you enough for all you do for our district.
Thank you. Next, we have our members of our Richmond Education Foundation, a group of people in the community that works hard doing some fundraising throughout the years. We give mini grants to staff, senior scholarships for graduating seniors, and we started 2 years ago, I believe, our summer scholarships for kids for things to do in the summer. So this evening, we have the members of the Education Foundation are here to present the mini grant recipients for this year. So if I could ask all the board members to come stand up here. I'd like to introduce everyone. Julie Jagoda is presenting the awards this evening because our president, Rich Michaels, is out of town. We have Julie Kolosinski, Kathy Miller, Sue Boyd, who is not with us this evening, Jill Schultz, Chris Furtaw, Brian Wamsley, and myself. Oh, I did.
That's all right. So we had a record number of grants this year, and I'm super excited for that. It was actually really hard to choose who to give grants to, and I really wish we could have given them to everybody. But we did. We had 10 applications that totaled over $6,000 of grants that people applied for. The projects that the teachers wanted to do, not just teachers, staff across the community, buildings, they were amazing. We ended up choosing 7 to award, and it totaled $3,600 in grants that we're giving out. Our first grant is awarded to Ms. Gillespie and Ms. Churchill from the 5th grade social studies for the amount of $549. All of our 5th grade students will be helped by this grant. It's going to fund an online subscription to Studies Weekly, which is allowing students to practice and apply literacy skills. It's a weekly newspaper that publishes stories about U.S. history as well as other nonfiction text videos, and gives them teacher resources and customizable assessments to use. Our next grant is awarded to Mrs. Ranger in the 1st grade for the amount of $80. This grant also supports our students' curriculum in social studies. Mrs. Ranger will use this grant to purchase the Little Thinkers Social Studies package that is specifically designed for 1st graders. It covers 5 different categories of social studies, going from citizenship to geography. And it includes printable and projectable books for the classroom so they can do read alouds in class. The next grant goes to Ms. Wallet in 6th grade math for the amount of $370. Ms. Walla will be using this to purchase Versatiles. If you've never heard of Versatiles, you should look it up. It's pretty cool. I never heard of it myself. Versatiles allow students to work independently or in pairs, and it allows them to self-check their work. That allows teachers to be floating around the classroom, helping out where they're needed. So students complete a worksheet, or math worksheet, and for each question they answer, they place a tile in the Versatiles case. And then when they're done, they flip the case over, and there's patterns. If the pattern matches the worksheets, then they know they got all the problems correct, and if they didn't, they can go back and work on their mistakes. It's a unique and screen-free way to allow students to work independently, and it can be reused each year, helping future students. All right, our next grant goes to all of our kindergarten teachers. We have Mrs. Lumbert, Mrs. Gibson, Ms. McCoy, Mr. Stevenson, and Ms. Charlevoix. The grant is in the amount of $150. It will allow each kindergarten classroom to have a set of alphabots. Alphabots are a STEM-based learning tool that will help kindergarten students build up their foundation in reading and recognizing letters and letter sounds. We love that the teachers are looking for ways to incorporate STEM into their routine classroom learning, and it's another unique way to help students learn. Next is Mrs. Walters from the third grade in the amount of $200. As we know, third grade is a big year for our students. They take the M-STEP, and their reading levels are assessed with the potential of being held back if not proficient. The M-STEP also assesses students' abilities to research and write results of that research. The grant Mrs. Walters will use is to fund a library of special books geared towards researching projects at the third grade level. These books choose real-life subjects that are of interest to students at the third grade level, such as where is the Eiffel Tower, or what was Hurricane Katrina, or probably some of the kids' favorite, what is the World Series? Students will be able to choose a book, read it, and then use their computers to research it more, while learning to take notes, organize their thoughts, and write a research paper. These kind of skills are so valuable to students not only in middle school, elementary school, through middle and high school years, but also beyond in college and their jobs. I know when I was in college, I saw students still struggling with research papers, so I think it's really great that we're starting to teach that early here.
Thank you so much.
All right, our last two grants go to a set of teachers that have both done a lot, or there are three teachers actually. Three teachers that have done a lot to support the Education Foundation. The first one is Mrs. Durst, who teaches our STEAM classrooms in the elementary and middle school. Mrs. Durst is always one of the first to volunteer at our events or show up to any of the events that we put on. And I've personally sat with her some late hours at a poker night as we raise funds to give away these grants. So thank you, Mrs. Durst. So Mrs. Durst is receiving a grant of $1,300, which will fund the program Minecraft for Education. This will impact all 4th and 5th grade STEAM classrooms and 6th grade technology. She's currently using a free trial in our 6th grade technology classes, and her students are so excited and engaged. The program allows for creativity and collaboration while enhancing student learning in science, math, social studies, computer science, and the list goes on and on. I think it's fabulous you brought something from their outside world into the classroom. And our last two grants go to Ms. Kaganak and Ms. Shannon with the high school art department. I'm not sure who else saw the post on the Richmond Community Schools Facebook page, but correct me if I'm wrong, as of mid-January, our students had received almost $900,000 in art scholarships. Is that right?
We're now at $959,400.
Amazing. But all you have to do to know that our students' art is amazing is look in the hallways of our classrooms, our hallways of our schools, where the art's displayed around the buildings. These two Two teachers also do a lot to support the Education Foundation through their efforts towards our Enrichment event, which showcases the arts, music, and theater departments in our school. These grants to Ms. Kaganak and Ms. Shannon in the amount of $954 will go towards new art show displays for all grades. We take great pride in our student artwork, and these displays will allow the art to be showcased and engage the community at our public events. Thank you.
Once again, thank you to our Richmond Education Foundation members. While the group is small, they are a tremendous group of people who work very hard to make good things happen for our students and staff, and I'm proud to be part of that group. Next, our presentation. First one, Detroit Institute of Art Millage Proposal.
This time I'd like to introduce Lillian Demas. She's going to come up and talk to you about to provide information for the board and the community about the upcoming Detroit Institute of Art Millage Proposal.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Walmsley. I'm delighted to be here speaking before the Board of Education. I would like to introduce my colleague who has joined me. His name is Ken DeBoser. You may know him. He was a state representative and state senator. Was on the Chippewa Valley School Board, works with their foundation, and now is working as a coordinator with the millage. My purpose in being here really is to speak about the DIA, which is very easy for me to do. I'm a former educator, high school principal, and I love walking into school buildings and sharing what has been able to take place as a result of the millage for our students in Macomb County. I'd like you to take a moment and look at the report. This form, hopefully everyone has one before you. This was for 2018 because we've just completed 2019, and the new brochure will be coming out shortly. And it relates only to Macomb County and the number of students who have been able to visit the DIA as a result of the millage. And that is probably the part that I enjoy the most. As a former educator, I serve on the Education Committee and have had the opportunity to work with Macomb County schools in creating curriculum and arranging field trips that are curriculum-based. Years ago when we took field trips, it was, okay, let's go to the DIA, we'll look at the art, and won't that be wonderful? And it was wonderful, no question about it. But the big problem was, how are we going to get there? Who's going to pay for the buses and all those things? What has happened in the time I have been there is that real key curriculum programs have taken place. So no teacher has to go down there without knowing exactly what they're going to do or what they want to do. In the beginning of the millage proposal, when we first started to take students down, we created curriculum for third grade. And in the third grade title was A Night at the Museum. Many of you have heard of Night at the Museum, but this was K-N-I-G-H-T, Night in the Museum. And there was a whole packet that dealt with what kids would do before they came down, what they would see, the story they would write, Common Core curriculum right embedded in it. With the 8th graders, it dealt with issues of geography. With the seniors, we did portraitures. Today, people take lots of pictures. There are a lot of really what we would consider almost self-portraits at the museum, and there are certain commonalities about that. Why do they look that way? Who do they represent? How is their culture reflected in that? At this point, there are curriculum-based issues for every single grade, from preschool, kindergarten, all the way through 12th grade. With the larger districts, what we've done, and I'm hoping so very much that Richmond will do the same, is create a curricular piece or accept a curricular piece for one grade in the elementary level and have those elementary kids in 3rd grade or 2nd grade or 1st grade come every year. A different curriculum piece would be offered at the middle school level, And every year, those kids would have the opportunity to come down to the DIA and experience something different, but the curriculum pieces would be very valuable and aligned with whatever the teacher is teaching. And certainly at the junior level, high school level would also be fantastic. So from an educational piece, there's no reason why our kids could not really go down there on a yearly basis. Among the other things that have been offered, and I'm certain that you're aware of them, and you can see them right here, is that we've had over 366 Macomb County teachers go down to the DIA for in-services, and buses are provided. If the board would like to come down with groups of teachers, we'd be happy to take all of you down there for a docent tour and more information. Trips can be arranged with grandparents and their first graders for a grandparents' day, preschoolers, etc. The other thing that happens and is very valued in the community is that this year from Macomb County, we've had 1,900 seniors come in, and they've come from 67 Macomb County groups. I've escorted about 4 groups. This happens every Thursday. If there are 25 people or more, 55 or older, although they don't ask for birth certificates or passports, and we have been known to take a few people that are maybe 50 or even 48 or 45. They go down there on the Thursday, and the first Thursday of the month is always a tour by a docent. So it's a tour, and various things can be shown. On another date, it might be an art-making project, or it might be a film, or it might be a lecture, and they're different every single Thursday. So please share that with your community. It can be neighborhoods, it can be a club, a women's organization, or a group of teachers. The other thing that has happened is we've had 28 behind the scenes, and those are art talks that anyone is welcome to initiate. For example, if a teacher would like to have a volunteer come in and speak specifically about something relative to the museum, for example, women artists and how are they represented, or the Renaissance and what are the works of the Renaissance area, that can also be arranged. And at the very bottom of the sheet, you will see that there were 4 inside-out art installation and community art partnerships projects in Macomb County. If you drive into Romeo, you may notice that there's a huge mural now on one of the walls. And that was done through the DIA, an artist in the area, and the community. We hope that this will continue for every one of our communities in Macomb County, and I'm certain that Richmond would certainly want one. I know Sterling Heights has a sculpture. I think the police department has something, and I know they're starting another art project for Utica, in Utica. There have been 2,071 people who participated in drop-in art making opportunities in Macomb County, and 6,505 residents had the experience of visiting the DIA bus, and I think that that was something that had visited Richmond also. You can see on the map, the dots indicate the various things and the various locations they have come to. I'd like to see a lot more of those dots at the north end of our county, if at all possible. And you'll notice on the sheet also that 69,571 Macomb County admissions have taken place. On the back, there are 65,000 pieces of art, so there aren't enough days, there aren't enough opportunities to see all the wonderful art that is available to us. The other thing that as a high school principal I find so appealing about the DIA and the fact that it's doing all these wonderful things is that I have felt that for many years, many of our seniors who have gone off to college have looked for exciting big cities to live in, and they would frequently think of Chicago, New York, and other areas. It's wonderful to see the city, wonderful culture there, and we hope many of our kids who want to work in a big city will choose to work in our city down in Detroit. I would be very happy to help support any of these activities relative to school field trips or seniors trips down there, anything that I have mentioned, anything else you would like to look up. There's also wonderful film festivals down there. There's films right now in February. They do the 2020 Academy Award shorts are shown. Friday nights, you won't believe the young people that are down there. Every day there's a tour Every day there's a tour. If you go down there with children, there are things during the summertime, like, oh, that's gross. How do you mummify the mummies that are here? There's all sorts of things to do, and if you have young children, you want to go down them, when you enter the museum, you say, what do you have for my kids to do here today? There are invariably, there are games to play, scavenger hunts to go on, and additionally, all sorts of other things. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. You know that we're hoping to pass a millage, whatever you'd like to know, I'd be happy to share. But please know that we'd love to see more and more of your students down at the DIA. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Walton.
Is there an increase for the millage, or is there no
It is simply a renewal. It's a renewal. And the one thing I will share, because we just paid some taxes, it is 0.20, which means that for a home that is assessed at $150,000, it is $15 a year. It's a renewal.
And just so we're clear,
Yes.
you have to be a Macomb County resident to vote for it. Like, part of our school district is St. Clair County, so if you live in St. Clair County, you can't vote for
No,
it.
regrettably. I wish we could.
Right. Yeah, I just want to make it clear, it's not just because, you live in the school districts of Macomb County.
Right,
that
it
you're
is.
able
It's
to vote.
Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne County.
Right.
Those are the three.
Right, okay.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present before you, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. Okay, next up is our first robotics overnight trip. Nick?
Okay. Really quick, I want to say thank you to the Richmond Education Foundation for giving a grant to increase STEM education in our school. I know that's probably one of the biggest pushes that I've been trying to get is more STEM education in our school, being inclined with the robotic stuff. So thank you for assisting them and helping that get into the kindergarten. That's a huge deal. So when I passed out to you guys, there is something that I'm going to go over in a little bit when I get to the Waterloo trip. But for those who don't know me, I am Nick Mathis. I am one of the co-head coaches for the First Robotics High School team. This will be my second year doing it, but 6th year with the team officially, and then this is our 9th year as a team. So what I'm presenting to you guys is 2 overnight stays. One being for a competition that is happening at the University of Waterloo in Waterloo, Ontario, and the second one being the state championship that we've usually presented before. So going into a little bit of the Waterloo competition, this is a competition held at the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. It is considered a first Canada-Ontario district event that we'd be attending. Pretty much what it comes down to is at this competition there's a very high caliber amount of teams at this competition. As I state here, there's 4 world championships, over 200 blue banners, which are event wins in First Robotics at this competition among all the teams, as well as 3 Hall of Fame teams competing at this competition. So it's been said to be the hardest competition currently in the country. And the main reason for that is we just want our students to be able to compete, against the best of the best before we get to the point where we're competing against very high caliber teams at the state championship as well as the world championship. This is solely for an experience. This tournament does not account for any qualifying points that we will get for the state championship. It's solely for experience and allows sort of us to get another competition on the robot and get some more experience with our drivers before getting to the point where we're competing for real in the state of Michigan again at the beginning of April. Like I said, it takes place at University of Waterloo, Ontario. We're staying right downtown. I already have hotels booked that is about 6 minutes from the venue. Now, I'm sure you all are wondering how we're crossing the border. So what happens is because we were traveling with the school and it's considered a school team, the customs allows any student at the age of 18 or under the age of 18, so 18 and under, And it allows me to travel with a signed and notarized form that I've handed out to each of you. One of them is for coming into Canada, and one is coming out of Canada. So there's one, I gave you one of the forms. Essentially, they're the exact same form. It just says at the end that we're coming back into the United States instead of going into Canada. So what I have to do is, we've already got all of the students' forms signed and notarized, and then I have to have a copy of their birth certificate. And then I also have to have a letter from Superintendent Walmsley just stating that we are crossing as a school, and the school board has noticed and approved of this trip. So, and then what'll happen is they'll open up our trailer, make sure we don't have any paraphernalia or anything of that sort in the trailer. So, but other than that, we're good to go to cross the border. So, what does have to happen, we're not worrying about currency exchange while we're crossing, so we'll be utilizing the school purchase card. And then that way we don't, I know the letterhead's wrong, by the way. So we have to utilize, we would prefer not to have 27 students changing currency over and then changing it back. It's already going to take us probably about an hour across the border. We don't want to add another hour to that. So if possible, we would just like to utilize the school purchase card and go out as a team and purchase that kind of thing under our card. And then what would happen is each student is being charged $125 for the trip. We did this last year also with one of our Gull Lake District competitions. This is mainly just due to the hotels because since it's not a state event, the school does not cover it, and unfortunately we do not have enough money in our team budget to allow for that. What is happening is that if there's a student that has some kind of money hardship, we do have some money set aside of a fundraiser that we did to be able to pay for those students that don't necessarily have the money to afford that. We want everybody able to have the experience of, they're a part of the team. It's, like I said, it's about the experience. It's getting to see those high caliber teams that we might not see otherwise. So, I'm trying to think of anything else here. I think that's it for the Waterloo competition. Moving on to the state championship. This is the one that we've gotten approved in the past. I'm just doing it now. That way we don't have to rush and do it, the week before. Takes place at Saginaw Valley State University again. It's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday competition. Back to the Waterloo competition really quick before I forget. We will be departing on Thursday about noon, and they will be out the half of that Thursday and then out that Friday of school. So Waterloo will be a Friday, Saturday. The state championship has actually increased from 160 to 200 teams this year. So they are going to be pushing matches almost all day Thursday. So instead of having the rest of our team get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, drive 2 hours to Saginaw Valley State University, and then be up all day, we would prefer to bring everybody else up the night before. That way we're all prepared and energized for a good day of competition. Hotels stayed the same as years prior. We're about 20 minutes out right across the Zilwaukee Bridge. Like I said again, for both of our competitions, we really want to just be able to get Richmond Community Schools out there. I know, like I stated at one board meeting, that I said that when we lost in the World Championship, and it's about time that robotics starts to get the school on the map instead of cheerleading and wrestling and baseball and all that. So time for some academic stuff to get us on the board and with our extracurriculars. So like I said, just another good way to represent Richmond Community Schools. So any other questions about either of them?
How did you come about that Waterloo event? Were you invited or were you
Yeah,
asked?
so what happens is I'm actually, I forgot to mention one thing. I'm friends with a couple other Michigan teams that are going. So Team 33 The Killer Bees from Notre Dame Preparatory Academy out of Pontiac is also going. And then Team 3538 Robo Jackets out of Avondale is also going. So there's 2 other Michigan teams that are also going to this competition. Mainly it's just because of the connections that I've built with some of the teams that I've known over the years. And a bunch of the Canadian teams that are really good want a bunch of Michigan teams to come over to get them, because supposedly, it's Michigan and Ontario. Those are the 2 really the powerhouses of the country right now for FIRST Robotics. So they want as many teams to come over. It is costing us a $1,000 event registration fee that we've already paid for. We still are in the refund period until next Monday. So if for some reason that the board does not approve the trip, we are still able to get that money back. So yeah, mainly just because we want the kids to have an experience.
Nick, when you have here 25 to 30 students, is that Is that a guess, or do you anticipate taking?
Yeah, so right now we actually have 26 students have turned in the forms. So what happens, I left a gap only because due to ineligibility stuff, if something comes up where a student's ineligible and stuff, they will not obviously be allowed to go at that point. So
That's pretty
why.
exciting.
And that'll be the same for the state competition as well. We pull eligibility on that Monday. If they're failing at that point, we don't allow them to go to the competition that weekend. So.
Okay.
Any
Anybody
questions?
Anybody else? Okay, you know that usually when you come and do this, it's a 2-week process, but we are actually going to be voting later on in the meeting tonight for this, okay?
Sweet. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys.
You bet. Thank you.
You are either welcome to stay, or I will notify you as soon as we're done.
Gotta go back and get the warm-up bill, so. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, baseball team's overnight trip to St. Petersburg, Florida. Mr. Evans.
Good evening, everybody. This is our second year going on our trip. Last year, for the new board members, I guess I should explain. Every year since I've been coaching here at Richmond, there's a big question about what do we do over spring break. And in the past, we've let kids go. There's no issues with it. We finally decided, after talking with a bunch of parents and players, about if they'd like to go down as a family and practice baseball down in Florida. So last year, with the board's permission, we went down there. Every player is with their parents. We're not staying together. Every parent is responsible for getting their son down there. They stay with them wherever they rent their facility or whatever place they're on, BBR or something like that. I don't know. VRBO. And then they come to we rent a facility, a practice facility. We go Monday through Friday, and we practice from 8 in the morning until noon. Last year, we had a tremendous success of bringing a lot of people from the community. A lot of Little League parents end up showing up. A couple of parents purchased food for the kids every day at the end of practice. So it was a pretty special, I thought it was pretty, the feedback we got was great because we even if their little kids showed up, we were in the old New York Yankees minor league facility. That's the field that we have. And so it's you take the best baseball field, natural field here, and it doesn't hold a candle to what we're practicing on in this community. And it's a great experience for the kids. I put out a feedback form for parents, anonymous, so they could say whether they liked it, they didn't like it, and everybody overwhelmingly liked it. 2 questions that always come up is, do they have to go? No, they don't have to go. If they want to take off, like some seniors left and went on their spring trip last year, there was no penalty for them going on their trip. If they make the team, they're on the team, whether they're going on their spring trip away from us or not. If they cannot go, it's not a big deal. We have a couple of underclassmen coaches that stay back and still try to practice during that week, but it's 0 cost to the school district. The RBI organization pays for the rental of the fields. We get everything we need. We carry everything down in the van to practice with. This year, the state allowed Michigan schools to scrimmage schools. You can't play a game out of state within a certain mileage, but they just okayed that if, like, we're going to play Romeo in a scrimmage, and we're also going to play Utica Stevens in a scrimmage down there on Tuesday, Thursday, if the board approves. And we let anyone go that's in the program. So whether you're a freshman player or whether you're a senior, whoever wants to go down there, they're welcome to come down there. And that's kind of how it works, and just hoping you guys will support it and allow us to continue to have some fun in Florida with the families.
Any questions? My question was going to be, because you had talked about the scrimmage stuff, so the fact that came about, that's probably a good thing for the team too. Instead of just practicing, they're going to get some game stuff in.
Yeah, and it's funny, we learned through doing it, there's many teams in the St. Pete's area that are renting different facilities, so we can go down there. Aaron Carpenter's from Oxford is down there. They're in Clearwater, which isn't far from us, who's our relative. She knows, but I know most of you know. But so we meet up with them too.
That's cool. Very good. Good experience. Okay, same thing, Mr. Evans, you know that in the past, we are going to be voting on it later. You are welcome to stay, or Mr. Walmsley will get in touch with you.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, next is our school student achievement update and school improvement update with a focus on the multi-tiered system of support. We'll start at the high school. Mr. Castle.
Gassel gets that, in your packet, you have basically a kind of a timeline of all the school improvement presentations with the most recent at the end of the slides.
So if you're following along at home, I believe we start on slide 23, looks like that. Tonight we're going to cover the MTSS, which Mr. Pelto just said is the multi-tiered systems of support. And before I do the high schools MTSS, I'm going to kind of give an overview of what MTSS is for everybody. So obviously, what is the MTSS? Multi, meaning more than one, tiered, so it's going to be layered. The systems of support. And what this is a way in which we provide tiered assistance to students, whether that's academic or behavioral, and that's a big key. And throughout this presentation, you'll see a triangle. A lot of times, this system is represented by a triangle, because the key here is that everybody is getting the base layer, or tier 1. So every single student within the high school is receiving all tier 1 supports. And then based on need, you move up to tier 2. And then if you still haven't met your needs, you can be moved up to tier 3. So a triangle is a common theme you'll see throughout here. Some of the key implementations to an effective MTSS is a culture of collaboration. So this is not something that one staff member or even department can do. This is an all hands on deck approach to try to meet our students' needs. We base our decisions on data. So we take a lot of data, we break it down, and then we're not just making educated guesses by themselves. We are making educated guesses as professionals, but we're also using hard data to make our decisions. And then finally, the teamwork and shared responsibilities again, this is a family type affair that every single adult in the building is responsible for every single child and their well-being. So again, you'll see sometimes it's a triangle, sometimes you see a ladder. So I don't know if Mr. Bartels or Mr. Coach should have a ladder in their presentation, but this is often represented with a ladder as well, going up and down. And the key is that if you meet the tier 1 and you need to go up to tier 2, you have the ability to go back down to tier 3. So once we've met your needs, this is not something that you're stuck on. You have the fluidity of going up and down based on your needs. So what do all effective MTSSs have in common is that they have more than one level of support, and they have multiple options at each level. So if you move from one level to another and you don't meet one option that doesn't fit your needs, there are other horizontal options for you at that tiered level. It's a fluid system, which we just talked about, which means you have the ability to go up and down based on your needs. And then there are very specific strategies that are identified to provide support for you. And a lot of times we see, especially with behavior, people think of it as a consequence that, okay, well, you didn't behave yourself in tier 1, so you go to tier 2, and that's a, for lack of a better term, let's say timeout or a detention. Well, you didn't meet it at level 2, so now you go up to level 3, which is a suspension. And that's not truly what an MTSS is, because those are just strictly consequences, not addressing the actual issue with the behavior and providing support that you need. So this is an example of a very basic MTSS. It's kind of hard to see up there, but if you have a hard copy in front of you. Tier 1 is school-wide protocols and classroom expectations. So tier 1 within the classroom is a school-wide, or it's a classroom expectations, day 1 or 2. The teacher's going to explain these are my behaviors that are expected in my classroom. School-wide, it would be in the handbook and the code of conduct, but this is what we believe we expect for our students. Tier 2 is more individualized and reteaching for the students, so that could be an example of maybe taking a student out the hallway and privately explaining to them what we expect from them, or having them stay after school and just having a brief conversation with them. And then tier 3, which is very specialized, individualized support, a lot of times with the use of an entire team, not just one individual. Here's a more detailed MTSS. The percentages in all of these are an estimate. You'll see on there a lot of times everyone is getting tier 1, and then depending on which model you use, it's anywhere from 25 to 20% either that tier 2, and then sometimes tier 3 is 5%, sometimes it's 2 or 3%. The whole idea is that as you go up the tiers, you're narrowing down and focusing on the academics and the behavior for the student. So how is this done at Richmond High School? So now more specifically to Richmond High School. We start with using universal screenings like the NWEA, the PSAT, the MSTEP, et cetera, all the different tests that we give our students. These give us an idea of where our students' strengths and weaknesses are, and that takes us from tier 1 to possibly tier 2 and tier 3 based on those scores. We use research-based interventions, scaffolding, so if something doesn't work, like we said, we have different layers to assist our students, using the multiple intelligences, because sometimes we realize that a student may not be a great test taker, but that doesn't realize that they don't have a comprehension of material. So just because they didn't score well on the NWEA doesn't mean we're automatically moving up to tier 2. We're going to look at different ways. We're going to have face-to-face conversations. We're going to talk to the teachers. We're going to look at their other grades to see if it is just a multiple intelligence issue for the student. And then all decisions are based on data. So we're using the data and not just using our data. Some of the tier, some of our tier 1 academic supports at Richmond High School, and again, this is just some of them, not all of them. Having a strong base core curriculum, having PLCs, differentiated instruction in the classroom, before or after school assistance is available to all of our students. You come in the morning, there's teachers in their classroom, there's teachers after school. The CITW-based instruction is expected to be by all of our teachers. Scaffolding of prior knowledge, or looping, is another common term that's going back and saying this is what we already should know, let's base on that and continue to move forward. Test retakes, modeling is a big one, especially for our freshmen. We model them what we expect out of their behavior. And many, many other things. So these are all things that every student gets every day at Richmond High School. The tier 2, so if it's not working at tier 1, they're going to move up to tier 2. Just some of the things that we use here are advanced graphic organizers, extra time for some students, modifying the assignments, online courses. So if the student's not performing well in a traditional classroom, we have the availability of tier 2 for them to go into online courses. The resource room is another tier 2. Cooperative learning groups with intentional roles is one, where we're not just saying, okay, find your friends and get into a group, because that really doesn't do too much good. It's where the teacher's intentionally placing some students who have strengths in one area, weaknesses in another, and they're providing that support within the classroom for them. Parental involvement is a big one for tier 2. So you're making those parent contacts, the phone calls, the emails, the conferences, and sometimes the Skype calls with them. Peer tutoring is a great tier 2 thing we have here. We have RHS students that provide tier 2 tutoring for our students after school. And then progress monitoring with scheduled check-ins. So the way that I would think of this is the old sheets where you fill out, the teacher would fill out the sheet at the end of the week, say this is how my student's doing. But in the high school, it's not so much the old-fashioned sheet. It's an email home every week to say this is how the student's doing, this is how they're performing. And then not just in a negative way, but also some of the tier 2 things we do to provide help for our students that are academically excelling. We offer dual enrollment. So if the students are getting the A's and they're breezing right through the classrooms, we offer dual enrollment for them. The APs and the honor courses are also some of the enrichment activities we have for tier 2. Tier 3, so the very tip of the triangle now that we're moving to. Some of the examples are teacher-provided notes, allowing the use of the notes on the tests, increased parental involvement. This is where we're having the parents come in for scheduled meetings, sometimes with the social worker, sometimes with the counselor, sometimes with the administrator, sometimes with everybody. Extended time on the formative and summatives, chunking and breaking down of assignments. We have student studies in which we have the teachers, social workers, caseworkers. It's an all-hands-on-deck approach to find out what's working for that student. That's a tier 3. We have MISD assistance for some of our EL students, and then credit recovery. So we have our credit recovery room for students who have not had any success in a traditional classroom. We move it up to the tier 2. Still not working. Sometimes those students are better off working online for one way or another. And again, one of the positive tier 3s is for those students who are really excelling. They were killing it in the tier 1 classes. They're doing awesome in AP and honors. We also offer the availability of going to the IAM down in McComb for those tier 3 students. And then ex-Governor Granholm there is kind of pushing the idea that in a family, no one gets left behind. So this is really to ensure that we make sure every student is getting the needs that they have provided for them. So now the behavioral MTSS. Tier 1s are, these are the protocols or the school rules, so these would be the things that are in the handbooks all the way across, expected behaviors. Universal pre-interventions, so things that we expect on the first week of school, we call the freshmen down and we have a discussion with them. These are what we expect from your behaviors. We model them, we show them. It's as simple as this is how we expect you to walk in the hallways, not run in the hallways. This is how you open your locker, you know, slam it wide open. We don't yell at our friends from down the hallway, just very simple tier 1s. In the classroom, teachers are going to review the syllabus. That's an expected behavior for every teacher. One of the tier 1 activities that we're really proud of in the high school is our teachers are out in the hallways and they're greeting those students. We meet them at the front door, whether it's in front of the school, in the hallways, in the locker rooms. We greet them, we make them feel like they're welcome here, and we make sure that they know that we're happy they're at school today. Parental contacts, that's an expected behavior, that every teacher is to be making parental contacts during the year, and they keep a log of that, so we have a record of it. The Code Blue and PBIS, which we give away every Friday for behavior. Seating charts, if it's needed, especially those first couple weeks before the teachers really get to know the students. And then a daily announcements. We have it every single day, and the kids kind of get tired of it. We remind them every single day that we already closed campus, and they're not allowed to leave, and they're not allowed to bring lunches back in every single day. To the fact that the young lady who read the announcements for me says I don't have to write that down anymore. She's got it memorized. So tier 2 is here, more individualized, really not your one size fits all. The reteaching the consequences for them. This can be intentional or priority seating, in which we're taking our students and we're intentionally placing them in the classroom away from certain people or around other people. We want them to model their behavior. One-on-one conversations, increased parental contact, loss of classroom privileges. Some teachers have their own detentions that work out very well, which is Zach Morris is down at the bottom. He's happy he got a detention, but I'm not nearly as nice as Mr. Belvin, so we do not want them to have those detentions. We have restorative justice and behavior plans. And then one of the tier 2 is rewarding those students for the Code Blue and putting them up on Facebook and giving them that public recognition that they want there. Some of our tier 3, moving toward the top, these are the intensive, customized interventions and supports. So tier 1 and tier 2 have not worked. This is where parents or guardians are absolutely involved in the discussion. They're brought in. There are face-to-face conversations with them. Very specialized behavior plans. Scheduled and intentional check-ins where if we know a student's having an issue and we recognize that it's after lunch every day. We're sitting there and we're going into that classroom after lunch every day. We're checking in with the students. We're seeing at the front door if we notice that every Friday they have an issue. We're bringing those students in and we're looking for trends and seeing if we can address that individual behavior. With the social worker, counselor, and administrators, and sometimes teachers. One of the things that I'm going to give Ms. Borwick credit for, I think she's here, is she does a great job of recognizing which students have good rapport with which teachers, and she does a great job of pairing up that teacher and the student as a mentor and providing that extra kind of parental, pseudo-parental support during the school day. We do risk assessments for our students if we think there's some dangerous behavior. Staff mentors, like I just said, and then finally the last resort, which we never want to do, is remove them from a traditional classroom setting, and that can be in-school suspension. We always try to do that first, where we try to keep the kids in school and still provide them an alternative way to get their education, whether it's for an hour, whether it's for the day, or whether for it's long-term. We don't ever want to take them out of the educational setting. Restorative justice is a big thing that we use here, where Ms. Borwick or I will take the students or take a group of students that are having issues, and we sit down with them and their parents and sometimes our liaison officer, and we have those conversations with them, and we turn it into more of an adult conversation where we say, okay, let's break down their behavior. Why are we acting like this? Let's get to the root of the problem and solve it so we don't go any further. Those are some of the individualized and specialized tier 3 things we do. So how do we know if it's working? We look at the number of office referrals from month to month to see if they're going up or down. We look at our attendance rate. We look at our tardies. We look at our academics. So the semester just ended, so we'll be pulling some of the academics, and we'll see for some of our students that had issues. First quarter, we'll then compare it to their second quarter grade and see if we had any effect. If we didn't have any effect, we need to go back to the drawing board and see if we can find a different way to solve their issues. The process is fluid, so if we notice that we put a couple of tier 2 or even tier 3 interventions into the student, and those have worked, we start to back off on those. We don't immediately go from tier 3 to tier 1. We start to take it back to tier 2 and then to tier 1. And we always make sure that we're providing that support for those students. Again, never static, always adapting. So we can put this down and we can codify it and make sure that we have this all in ready. But the bottom line is we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure our students have success, whether it's written down or not. So the future. Where is MTSS going at Richmond High School? At the last PD day, the RHS staff developed a master list of the different levels and tiers of support within their own classrooms and at the school as a whole. And so we'll continue to build on that and really look at the PDs and what's working in the classroom. So what's working for teacher A may not be working for teacher B, but if teacher A, B, C, and D all agree that this is working great, that's something that we're going to start to share across the school. The next step is, again, to codify and write down what takes a student from tier 1 to tier 2, and what takes a student from tier 2 to tier 3, and then back and forth. So we have that written down so that if someone comes in and they say, okay, well, my student has this behavior or this need, we'll say, okay, we're going to place them on tier 1, and then we'll take them to tier 2, and back and forth as needed. So plan is to get this all written down and have it to us very soon.
Any questions? Mr. Castle, I do.
Sure.
When you're talking the restorative practice, restorative justice, how much of that are we doing and what kind of success rate? I don't know if that's even the right word.
Sure. And Ms. Warwick is back here. I'm going to say we've probably had half a dozen close to restorative justice meetings this
Okay.
year. And it can, I mean, a lot of them are not even formalized. It's where we will hear it. Our teachers do a great job of hearing, okay, student A has a problem with student B. Before this escalates, let's see if we can get down to the root cause of this. And I'm trying to think, I don't think we've had any occurrences where it may not work immediately. And sometimes it takes multiple meetings and it takes escalating it to where you bring parents involved in, because a lot of times our students act way different in front of our parents
Right.
than they do by themselves. So I would say our success rate is extraordinarily high and we haven't had any reoccurrences, I can promise you that. But to say it's not gonna happen, we're talking
No,
about
but
teenagers.
but the no reoccurrent, that's huge. That, to me, that's saying that it's working, whatever.
It does.
However we're doing it.
And it's coming at them, and it's really not, you don't want to say, if you do this, I'm going to suspend you, because they're not
Right.
thinking rationally. You want to get down to, why are you upset with somebody else? How can we solve this? What's the end game? And a lot of times, most of the time when you get to them, even teenagers, it may take a while, but they'll understand that the behavior is not warranted for the actual issue at hand.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Next, Mr. Bartels, the middle school.
Okay, at RMS, the multi-system tier support systems used to be called RTI. It was response to intervention, and that was the buzzword probably 5 or so years ago. And so the MTSS systems and supports isn't, I mean, within the last 5 or so years, it's renamed, but it's basically RTI for those of you that were familiar with the RTI program. And it is a tiered system like Mr. Castle was talking about. It is what we do every day. It is who we are as a school. And the collaboration between the experts from the classroom teachers to the parapros to social workers, counselors, assistant principal, the communication, that, if you can imagine the tiers being a puzzle and every person having an important piece of that puzzle, and the collaboration to get that puzzle to fit, is what we're all about. And I'm going to go over a lot of what we do, not everything, but a lot of what we do. Like Mr. Castle said, it is both academic and behavioral. Both have 3 tiers and both have an extremely high impact on student achievement. Tier 1 at the middle school, and this is where Mr. Castle talked about percentages. 85–90% of the students receive each and every day. And the reason why you would hope everyone gets tier 1 academic support. I'm going to give you why it's a percentage. So if you're in a resource room mathematics class, you are getting the core curriculum. You're getting the content. And it's just that you're placed in a different class. So when you say, why would 85–90%, why would you do tier 1 supports for everyone? Well, we do, but it's broken into percentages based on what resource room or what classroom you're in, where you fall. Because your amount of support that you need as an individual determines the tier. So you could have two two different programs or supports in both tiers. Because when you think of tier one is the majority to several students or several supports to few, to help give you an idea of how you flow through the tiers. Michigan core curriculum, every student gets it. It's systemic and sequential instruction from our teachers every day. Differentiated instruction, and when you think of differentiated instruction, this is not only just me as a teacher teaching you, but it's the content, it's the process, and it's the product that we differentiate. It's not just the instruction. That when you say differentiated instruction, you're really talking about all three of those: the specific content, the process of delivery, and then the product that you're asking for. Classroom instruction that works. Our last two that need to be trained. It's been a district initiative. Started last week, and they have one more, and then everyone in RMS will be trained in the CITW. Just to briefly go over these activities and these CITW strategies that we want each and every day in the classroom. Collaborative learning, cooperative learning, cueing and signaling, appropriate questioning response skills, and the appropriate questioning response skills, the response skills with the 21 things, and trying to get students to verbalize and be able to present information with what society's asking for has been a big emphasis. Note-taking and advanced organizers, non-linguistic representation, summarizing, reinforcing, providing recognition, and posting objectives and referencing the objective. I would say half of these are non-negotiable. We expect them each and every day. The other ones we expect to be happening throughout the quarter. For example, cooperative learning. You can't always be in a cooperative learning setting, depending on where you're at, but we do want a cooperative learning activity or approach throughout the year at some point. And the most important thing, especially going to standard-based grading, is the feedback. Feedback is crucial for learning. Other academic supports, Tier 1, parent-teacher conferences, fall and spring, and we encourage parent contacts. Summative assessment retakes, everyone can do that. Reading strategies, our teachers to model reading aloud, think aloud, shared reading, guided reading, SSR, model reading strategies, text-based inferencing, and facilitating comprehension strategies. We're big on literacy, because literacy is the key to everything. So throughout any part of the day or week, you can see these strategies going on in the classroom. And again, all students, Tier 1. One-to-one technology, laptops, that is a support that everyone gets. Content area writing, every student will write a paper in each of their contents each quarter. That's quite a few papers. Student data analysis, we've talked about data analysis a lot. We look at a lot as teachers and professionals, but we're working on and getting our students to look at their own data and analyze their own trends. Then they're more likely to hit the benchmarks that they set when we set student goals and student grade reflections that we do during our advisory. So those three student components, every student does, so that's why it fits in the Tier 1. Enrichment opportunities, we're always looking for those, and test taking strategies, teaching how to take tests, and that would be part of that differentiated instruction depending on the type of test or product that we're asking for, teaching kids the strategies to be successful. Teacher websites. Each teacher has a website with information that helps support student learning. CPM homework helper, that's mathematics. It's an online program for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Reading Counts is a comprehension program to hold kids accountable for reading books and reading different books. When we were all in school, it was probably book reports. But Reading Counts is a program where, and we're going to a web-based program. It's introduced in our 5th grade classrooms, but then it becomes mandatory in 6th and 8th grade. And that's where students get so many points for reading a textbook, or not a textbook, but reading a story, and then taking a quick comprehension quiz on it, and they earn points, and they have to earn points every semester or quarter. And that's for everyone. Literacy Library, this is going to be done in a couple weeks. We're excited to get the training on how it is set up and to take advantage of it. It's pretty impressive. It's worth a tour if you stop by. Boot camp is a support. We do it early to go over all the things that will help students become successful. Boot camp could also be behavioral support because it helps lower anxiety. I don't know if I have it listed as a tier 1 behavioral. Office 365, where we teach kids to where to save their information and use email and email their parents and so on. Tier 1, also the types of assessments we use are summative or interim and our formative assessments. Again, this will also go back to our differentiated instruction. I might ask 2 or 3 students who I know have a hard time from pen to paper. I might interview them to see if they know the information. And then our intervention or a tier where we would move them up or down in would be, okay, how can we get them to put their ideas on paper? Because we know they know it, but they're having a hard time putting it down on paper. Frequent assessments, we're giving shorter, more frequent assessments. And so we've noticed that we have less long-term or long-taking exams. Another tier 1 would be our 8th grade has final exams, and they keep track of all the standards that the students are proficient and partially proficient on. And their final exam is individualized to the student to take only the parts that they're not proficient on. So they can hone in on where they're weak. Instead of taking a final exam on everything, even the stuff they know, let's look at what we don't know and take a test on it, or study for it, take a test. And then I just mentioned, type of assessment, provide a variety of ways for students to respond, or show that they know the information. Tier 2, Title I, teacher and parapro push in student support. This is our first year, and we are very pleased with our teacher responses and our para responses and dedication. We think it's going pretty good. Bottom 30% student achievement focus. Each teacher is aware of the bottom 30% and focus on how they can reach them. Of course, pushing our advanced proficiencies, not just settling for our goal at the end of the day is for every kid to be proficient. But for those that keep striving and want to show advanced proficiency, we need to keep pushing them so they don't get bored, so that they can reach the highest limit that they're capable of as well. Level of literacy, for example, that Reading Counts program, not everybody, but that Reading Counts program is level, I should say everybody, it's levels to their ability. And then over time, students are pushed to the next level to keep striving and keep getting better at reading. Class schedule alteration, if possible, is a tier 2 because it happens to several students, but not all, if they need that academic support. And then computer-assisted instruction, that is also level. Few of the programs that we have that teachers use to help facilitate their content. It's not a replacement, it's a facilitation or an addition to what they're doing in the classroom. Special education IEP goals, double dosing of instruction. Again, if you think in tier 2, several students need a double dose of instruction in specific contents, and it's usually ELA and math. Special education resource room classes would be a tier 2. Parent-teacher conferences, teacher schedule would be a tier 2. Again, not every, when parent-teacher conferences are, or you can have a parent-teacher conference every day. We wouldn't turn anybody down. But when conferences are done in October, we don't have conferences again until March. If there's an issue with, again, a few students, not all students, and the teacher will call and schedule a parent-teacher conference. Classroom centers are grouped in reading and math by the teacher. And what we really find helpful this year in 4, 5, and 6, because of our para support, is now with the focus on our bottom 30 there, our top students can be pushed into more advanced stuff. Well, we're trying to get everybody proficient, but we can work with our top students within the classroom. Modification of cooperative groups is a tier 2. Reading support, small group, and paired partners. That would be something similar to the classroom centers, but more specific to reading support. Tier 3 academic, special education IEP goals. Now you'll notice this was on tier 2 as well, because there are a select few where their special education IEP goals are more intensive supports. That's why they would fall in the tier 3 category. Resource support center, resource room content classes, again, was in tier 2 as well, but there are some that need even more intense in the resource room content class, a more modified classroom. Organizational assistance, we do have paras as well as our social worker and counselor who will help organize students with their papers. Counseling, academic, conversations again with does it with all, but with intense supports. It would be with a select few that really need it, and then of course modified content. Tier 3 accommodations, Title I pull-out support. So we do have a push-in model, and we also have a pull-out support where students are pulled out of the classroom and getting supports. QRI testing, qualitative reading initiative, or inventory, is a test. We look at the data from the NWA proficiencies and teacher recommendation. Then a QRI is an individual test that really gives us more specific information on where a student lies, and then we make our decision on what supports they need. ACRI class is one of our tier 3 pull-out classes, as well as our math support class. And then our child study process is academic and behavioral support. Ms. Bertmeyer comes into it when we're talking about behavior. I'm in there when we're talking about academics. Our social worker, counselor, and Ms. Clausen, our IEP coordinator, run that meeting with the support of Mr. Bertmeyer and myself. Tier 3 academic supports. Continue inclusion of occupational therapists, speech and language, paraprofessional, social work. Again, a select few need that support. That's why it's tier 3. Individual differentiated content process and product. Could also be tier 3 depending on the severity of the need. And an evaluation and modification of the learning environment. Again, depending on the severity of the need. Behavior, tier 1, building positive relationships is first and foremost, for us to ever be successful, is we must build a positive relationship, and we must continue to try to reach every single student to build that positive relationship. That is our first and foremost number one goal right there. Reward assemblies to help do that and reward hard work. Advisory, we get a lot done in advisory. We have anti-bullying lessons, character lessons, coping skill lessons. We have Macomb Family Services come in and present programs to our students. PBIS is our positive behavior system. Restorative justice, we have classroom practices. One thing that's misunderstood about restorative justice is teachers do this probably daily. And now that's more on the radar and more talked about, and more sharing. They get better ideas on how to have restorative justice in the classroom, but it starts there. Office practices, that's when Mr. Bergmeyer and I would talk, and or a counselor and or a social worker. Teachers active in the hallway and classroom doors between classes is a behavior support. Number one, it builds that positive relationship, and number two, when adults are around. Recess, 4th grade through 8th grade, we believe is a behavior support. Get outside and run around. Get some of that silliness out of them. And we have double recess for 4th and 5th grade. So they have a recess that piggybacks off of their lunch period, but then they also have another recess later on that the teachers build into their day on their best fits their schedule. But then we also have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that we may go outside anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And they need it to. Parent conference, tier 2, teacher schedule. Again, because we have parent-teacher conferences scheduled by the district, but tier 2 would be those select few where we need to have either a teacher schedule or we need to schedule. Social work, behavior plans for students, teacher created. So there's behavior plans that teachers come up with in contracts with students and communicate with parents to try to work with, establish that relationship, that they are not referring it to the office. Working with that student for them to be the go-to rather than send them to the office for us to be the hammer. And that works, and several of our teachers do that. And then admin created, that's when it's it's beyond and everything we've tried. And we always involve our social worker and counselor with our admin created. PBIS Shine Winners each week. Several students do win Shine. Social work, I got that on place. Small group support. Our social worker will set up strategically groups and group support. And our social worker also runs this, and that's our peer-to-peer. Jolie Wojcicki, and she is fantastic. And this is year 2 with us. Tier 3 now, behavior intervention plan. This is an official behavior intervention plan. Social work, peer-to-peer, mediation, individual, and group that Jolie does. Paraprofessional support, tier 3 again. It was in tier 2 and tier 3. Again, paraprofessional support can be pretty intensive. That's why, but it's for only a select few. That's why it's a tier 3 as well as a tier 2. Evaluation and modification of the learning environment. Again, we have students where we do have to modify, evaluate and then modify the learning environment to help them set up for them to be successful. Child study process that happens monthly. Counseling individual for behavior, alternative setting. Student of the month celebrations, that would be positive behavior support. Risk assessment evaluation. If we feel the need where we have to have risk assessment, again, very few. That is it.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Bartels. Next, Lee Elementary, Mr. Proshin.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's kind of different than going last because just about everything that's on ours at the elementary school, all the other schools have talked about, which is a good thing because when we look at this, it's a pre-K through 12 program. So you can see a lot of the same things. So as students learn them at a young age at the elementary, they hear them again at the middle school, hear them again at the high school. So look at some of the Tier 1 academic supports at Lee. Like I said, you'll see a lot of the same things from the other schools on here. Some things unique to the elementary. We do the DRA Progress Monitor, where students are being tested on their reading skills and their comprehension. That is done 3 times a year. In kindergarten, it's done 2 times a year, just in the winter and in the spring. Fall Science Kits, this is our 4th year using the Fall Science Kits. A lot of hands-on activities, along with the writing aspect of it also. And then balanced literacy, that's something that we've been focusing on a lot these last 2 years. Last year with the Macomb Intermediate School District literacy coaches, come in at all grade levels. This year the focus has been with 2nd grade with the cohort, where the 2nd grade team and myself, we've gone to the ISD. It was 7 times. We have completed that, and some of those things are being incorporated in the classroom and also being shared at other grade levels also. Some more of the Tier 1 academic supports, once again, that all students are receiving. Some of our non-negotiables, something that the staff created, agreed upon, posted in the classroom, the 8 standards for mathematical practices. We had teachers, as I said in some previous presentations, going to number talks and presenting that to the staff, and has been scheduled for number talks for the whole staff next year. So it's something that every student's going to learn at all grade levels to increase their math skills. 12 indicators, essentials for literacy. A lot at the elementary level is the small group instruction, where other students will be doing some work at their seats. And teachers are bringing small groups, 2 or 3 students back at a time, to really identify their skills and work on some of their individual needs. Leveled interventions and leveled during math instruction. So certain teams, certain grade levels will switch students during math time. So they're seeing where the students are at and where the best fits, where their skills and what some of their things that need. So it can be specific skills. Instead of teaching the whole group, they're teaching specific things for the small groups. Teachers meet on a regular basis, looking at data, looking at NWA, looking at different skills, to see what those students need to learn and what they're ready to learn next. At each tier, before students go from Tier 1 to Tier 2, we do involve the child study process. If a teacher notices students need some additional assistance, need some additional help, maybe some Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions, we gather this child study team. Includes Mrs. Manguni, social worker, it'll include special education teachers, classroom teacher, parents. Just look at what additional help that student can get. One thing that's unique with the elementary school is that the teachers are with their students all day, every day, all week, so students don't fall through the cracks. Teachers really know the students very well, have a genuine interest in the 25 students that they may have in class, so they know their specific needs and all their individual needs also. Some Tier 2 academic supports. Once again, small groups, leveled literacy, our Title I support with our Title I teacher and our Title I paraprofessionals. They go into classrooms to offer support, and they also pull students out for small group instruction. Once again, identifying the specific needs that the students, the group's needs, so they can really target those individuals. As part of the third grade reading law, which once again, this is the first year that goes into effect, where third grade students may potentially be retained. So we've been planning for this for years, for about the last 3 years. So students have their individual reading improvement plan. Once again, identifying those students who may be below grade level, looking at data, looking at classroom observations so they can get additional support. Something that we're starting tomorrow for the first time, Section 41, our ELL, our English Language Learners Tutoring, which will take place during lunchtime. Elementary is a little difficult before and after school because of parents and their ability to get students. So we are going to just give them a little extra time during lunch. They will still get their lunch, they get to eat, but just give some time to do some reading and working with the classroom teacher. So we're excited. This is a new program we're going to start tomorrow, and see how it goes and make adjustments as we go. One thing we do have the WeBo 3 books. It's a program we started a couple of years ago where the students, it's a kind of a scripted book where they can take it home and the parent it says, okay, parent read this page, student reads this page. So it's kind of that program to get that parent involvement piece also. And then some of our Tier 3 academic supports. Special education, PBIS. Once again, PBIS also behavior and academics. We have some peer-to-peer supports. Sensory room break and teacher consultant support. Once again, that's the tip of the pyramid. Very small percentage of students at that point. Once again, at the elementary level, trying to really reach them at Tier 1 and Tier 2. And moving on to the behavior supports. You see a lot of things that are done at the other buildings also with the PBIS, restorative justice. That's one thing as we work at the restorative justice practice, really at the elementary level. It's the think about 5-year-old and 6-year-old. A lot of times they do things, push somebody, take their toys away. They don't have those social skills to really understand how to communicate. So that's where it's very beneficial to get two students to sit down and talk things out. So that's a skill they haven't quite developed yet. I've been an administrator at the high school level, at the middle school level, so this is very unique. And one of the really fun things at the elementary is you can really see it working. I know Mrs. Manguni works great with the students, getting them to talk together, learn about what they're doing, what they should and shouldn't be doing. Tier 2 behavior supports. Once again, looking at smaller groups. As we look at Tier 1, things that can be done with the whole group. Once again, some students just need that little extra attention, a little extra support. So we offer that. Social work, myself, Mrs. Manguni, social worker, staff members, also teachers. Behavior plans that are identified specifically for students in some of the areas that they need to improve in. Our monthly PBIS assemblies that we talk about with all the different virtues and different character traits that we focus on. And then, as always, parent conferences, meetings at any time. That could be Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. Always having that parent involvement and that parent communication. And the Tier 3, once again, the tip of the pyramid, students that just need that little extra additional help. Behavior intervention plan, a lot of times either with an administrator, also the social worker involved. 504 plans, IEPs, those can be, once again, both academic and behavior. And then we have our OT, speech, language, social worker, for those students that have those additional needs that they don't get in Tier 1, don't get in Tier 2, and just need that additional help. And the continuation of the child study process. So if a student is at child study, it might happen one time, always revisits whether they need to continue on, something needs to be changed, is the plan working, isn't it working, so it's always revisited. And that's where elementary teachers being with students all day, all the times they know, yes, this is working, we can move on from it, or no, we need to come back, reconvene, and tweak the plan a little bit to see what other additional support the student may need.
Any questions? I do. The Tier 1 academic support, when you talked about teachers switch students during math time, explain exactly what that means and what the advantage is.
So teachers, I'll just use, they may be teaching about addition. Well, some students may be ready for double-digit addition. Some students may be just still at single-digit addition. So instead of having a classroom full of everyone at all different levels.
Okay.
One teacher may say, okay, these students are ready for double digit, almost even ready for some multiplication, so I'll take these students because they're ready to continue on and move up and progress them. And then these students are not quite at that level, so they might be in the middle just learning a little bit more. And there's some students who are still behind, may need some intense instruction. Usually when it's that group that needs a little more intense instruction, we try to keep that number a little bit lower so the teacher can do a little more individual or some small group work.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same skill, but some are ready to move and we don't hold them back. So when we have some students who are in first grade but doing some second grade math, so we're trying to keep students moving where they need to be and not just say, well, they're in first grade, so they can only do first grade math.
Okay.
They're first grade, but they're ready to move on, so we're going to move them as much as we can. So that just helps the teacher, kind of have some of the same skill levels in the group that they're working with.
And how often do we do that?
Daily.
Okay.
They're switched daily, but then just depends on how they're doing. If when they switch the units, teachers will relook at things, see how they're doing. A lot of it's classroom observation too. They know students are ready to move on, and we want to push them and continue to do great achievements and keep working.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on, our next is our bond update. This is something we talked about after passing the bond, that each board meeting will have a portion where Mr. Walmsley gives an update on things that are happening with respect to the bond.
Okay, thank you. During the bond campaign to get the information out about the bond, we put a lot of the stuff on the website. I think we probably had one of the most comprehensive websites about getting the factual information out there. We are now doing the same thing with the bond update. So if you go to the website, there's a couple items I'm going to go over. One is the website. At the very top it says bond update, and you will see on this it will be a running tab of everything that we've been doing to allocate the bond dollars. So I encourage the community to look at this. You'll see when bids are opening, when bids have been approved by the board, contracts have been approved by the board, and when we start getting more of the financials, all that will be posted here. So it is completely transparent where every dollar goes for. The first thing I want to talk about is the upcoming event, which is tomorrow. One of the unique things that the board, when you voted to have Raymond James to be the bond sales, who are selling the bonds, the community actually has an opportunity to purchase bonds, and the interest that the district would normally pay to someone who bought it could be going to a community member in our community. So you can actually, there's a session tomorrow. It's from, I believe it's at 7 o'clock tomorrow night here in the media center. Mrs. Shatter, our business manager, will be here to talk about that along with representatives from Raymond James. Just pull that up, sorry. Again, I would encourage people to, if there is an interest, go to that session. It's informational. Paul Soma, is the contact. He was here when he did the presentation. The first project that we are up and running to get started, we actually have several in the docket, is our field turf project. And we are in the process of the elementary additions, which I'm going to show you preliminary drawings tonight, and we are getting ready to begin the middle school and high school addition renovation preliminary drawings and so forth. So if I start with the field turfs, give me a second here. Let's just split screen. Gives you a visual of what the field turf will look like, the final drawing. They are currently out for bids. Tomorrow the bids come in. You will see there is actually practice fields. You can actually click on it and actually see the drawings of the fields if you actually want to see the specifications, all the documents that are out for bid. At 2 o'clock tomorrow, this gives you all the specs regarding the contracts that the bidders will be submitting tomorrow. Bids are open tomorrow. We will review the bids with AUK as well as French and Associates, and we'll be our plan is to bring them to you for approval on February 10th. It may come for approval on the 24th, depending on how close the bids are. We are working currently with Mr. Reinhardt right now to move all of our spring sports schedules and adjust. Our plan is to be in construction April 1st on the stadium project. We should have it complete by August in the fall. But so there's a lot of home games that we're going to have to reschedule and move away just based on the field turf project. The second thing I want to bring an update is on the elementary project. We have been working with French and Associates along with AUK. We are not yet in a final phase on this, but what I can share with you is preliminary drawings. Here's the entrance to the elementary school. You'll see this is the where the current second and third grade classrooms are. These are the two classrooms that would be added on. Anytime you add on to a building, you have to have fire doors, etc., which would be here. You kind of see there would be a small office that could be used for social work or speech, depending on the services as well. So this hallway would have 5 classrooms down this hallway. There's an entrance that goes out towards the back. If you visualize, the bus loop is right here in the elementary school. In looking at trying to maximize the space of classrooms, I'm going to start off in this hallway over here. This isn't to scale, but it gives you conceptually where we're at. These are the 4 brand new classrooms, which are on the other side. Here is the property line. So you can see we go pretty close to the property line. It's as far to that property line as we can get. These bathrooms are planned for bathrooms. In those bathrooms, the last 2 classrooms that are currently in the elementary school in that wing, we are planning to put bathrooms in those classrooms, which would reduce these 2 classrooms, which might be where the sensory room, the size of those classrooms, where the sensory, or maybe that would be where a meeting room or so forth. We would add bathrooms onto those. So this, in essence, conceptually, is going to become the first grade wing, kindergarten wing with bathrooms in the classrooms. When you go over to the preschool wing, conceptually, I want to talk to you because we talked about a multi-purpose room to be able to expand. So I'm just going to scroll up here. Okay, here is the main office right now. Conceptually, this is a new entrance. Currently, the preschool or childcare enters from this end of the building. What we're looking at doing a smaller entrance to allow for AM and PM latchkey. Currently, this is the latchkey room or the childcare room before and after school. What we're looking at doing is opening this wall up to have one larger space so that when you have a larger group, so when parents come in, they're in a secure vestibule and they actually go into they get buzzed into a latchkey room for safety. This allows 4 preschool classrooms or 4 early childhood classrooms to be added. This design, we're also looking at removing the wall that's in Ms. Napier's office and moving her up into the main office, which is currently where the head starts. We're kind of shifting some classrooms. So right next to the main office, if you envision, this is Mr. Koshin's office right here. There's a wall right here. And this is the Head Start classroom. So we're basically flip-flopping it to create all of it into the main office area from a security perspective. Again, this could be closed off and have 2 individual classrooms. You can open those doors and have one larger multi-purpose space, especially on days when you have half days and you have larger numbers in that childcare. And then here again is the 4 additional classrooms. Each one has bathrooms. There's an IT room. And each one of these in the hallways here has a custodial closet for mops and buckets, etc., for cleaning those classes. So conceptually, this is where we're at. The plan is this drawings would go out for bid in May, end of April, May, with the ideas that we would be actually beginning laying brick in probably September for opening in the 2021 school year. So 1 year from this fall is the plan. Now, in this renovation, you also deal with flooring, ceilings, lighting, all the other aspects that are part of the bond. Once we have this pretty much as set in, and we've been meeting every other week as a bond committee, the next phase of this is to take this drawing, when they get a little more detailed, and to begin talking with the early childhood staff, the office staff, to get more fine detail. Right now, we're going under the framework of what we're putting on paper is within the parameters of what we budgeted in the bond application. The next step, which will be starting in literally just a couple of weeks, will be the middle school and high school additions. We'll start with the middle school, where we're looking at the office structure and the secure vestibule, as well as the additional classrooms for renovation. So I will be bringing you that as the next phase. And then finally, the last step would be parking lots, roads, and sidewalks. That's going to be the very last thing we do once all the construction's out. So for this summer, the plan is for the field project. It's probably the biggest visual that the community will see. Right off the bat, it's also the one that we could, based on the scope of it, be able to get it done. If you recall, instead of selling 3 series of bonds, we're selling 2 series of bonds, which saves a lot of interest and cost for the taxpayers. What it requires, though, is us to have 85% of the project completed within 3 years. So the summer of 2021, I'll just put it out there right now, there's a good chance none of our buildings will be available for use during the summer, because all 3 will be in the basically torn up inside, from new fire systems, alarms, lighting, flooring, etc. With the intent that we open it up with the elementary in the fall of 21. We are targeting the 22 and 23 years summers to be the parking lots, roads, and sidewalks. So this gives you a visual. Once the final drawings will be done, you'll obviously, as a board, you'll get those and you'll look at them. We are looking at the exterior layout, what it's going to look like visually is our next part. Now that we've got basically a framework. You'll see in these classrooms, you'll see cubbies put in these were all the existing cubbies, but you'll see in the other ones, we'll be adding those new cubbies. We're pulling out the old cabinetry and putting in the new cubbies and storages all the rooms. So, it's basically, from the big picture, we have the bond update. Again, all of this stuff will be on the website, so again, I encourage anybody to visit the website, click on the links if you want to actually see the bids that are out there. It's under the bid tab. Otherwise, all the bond information is there. It will be running with the latest information on top. If there are any questions, or if anybody wants to see any of the drawings, scopes, more than happy to share them with the community. Bond sales tomorrow. If you're interested in making an investment and getting a return on your investment, I should say, there's an informational meeting tomorrow. Field trip project will be starting. Bids are in tomorrow, so we'll know where those costs come in and what we budgeted. In the field turf project, the one thing I do want to point out is there is a water line that actually goes from the high school. If you vision the high school here, and it goes directly across the field to feed the varsity baseball field. During the project, that line will be cut because we don't want anything potentially happening under that field once it's installed. So we're looking at running the water line from the bus garage to the field, so we can maintain that watering. It's just to give the scope, and anybody's, if you want to read the document, if you can't sleep one night, it's not the most interesting document, but it basically is taking out this dirt. We will be moving this dirt and moving it behind the high school and leveling that field out and seeding that, so that area that has always been problems, we're tackling that. We're going to reuse some of that dirt, which will save some of our costs. It will be screened and moved over there. We'll also be stockpiling some of the dirt, so when the addition is on for the high school and the elementary, we have dirt available to be used rather than having it trucked off and paying that cost. The fencing will be replaced basically from the concession stand all the way around the field. They'll leave the existing fencing up there for security. And I'm drawing a blank, I want to say it's like 27,000 cubic feet of dirt they're moving out. I can't remember the number, but there's a lot of dirt being moved out of here. While they have it open, there is a conduit that runs under the football field. About right here, it's broken. It was put in when the stadium was built. And we tried to put the away speakers, when we put the new sound system in, that conduit would be fixed so that we can then move the speakers that are on the home side that we just have facing the way to where they should be, which is on the poles on the visitor side. So some of that stuff that we're going to fix while we have it all open, this is our time to do it. So that gives you basically kind of an update on the bond. Like I said, we'll be finalizing the elementary drawings, and within literally the next probably month, we'll be starting the middle school drawings, and at that point, then like we do at the elementary school, Mr. Koshin and Mrs. Manguni will bring in Mr. Bartels and Mr. Burkmeyer, and then at some point, the rest of the staff. Any questions about the bond? Last thing ahead is we had our, Tim, is it public, the rating call?
I believe
It's up. All right, we had our ratings call, which is Moody's Rating Company gives a district basically a score, very simplistic, and the better your score is, the more people want to buy your bonds. I guess that would be a summary. We did not go down. We actually maintained, which is very good, based on the debt that we have, both with this millage, the amount of debt we have. Can you just elaborate some of the points they thought were positives about our district? Because it's your credit in the business office, so I want to.
They talked about budgeting, they talked about planning, they talked about the bond issue setting us up in a good spot going forward. It's a large amount of debt for the district to take on, but it will be paid off, and we're in a good spot for it. That was one of the things that RJ from PFM was concerned about, was how it would affect our rating. But we're really,
I mean, you figure we're taking on $38 million in debt as a community in this bond, and so that was one thing they did. It will position us with the improvements that are going to be made to be very well in the future. The other thing that I do want to just at least make sure the board knows is they complimented the board in the direction of budgeting, being conservative in your estimates, and in the last couple of years, we've actually been able to put a little into fund balance, and we're slowly chipping away at that. This will be now our second straight year in the uptick with the number of developments. So it was very complimentary to the district, and so that there is a press release that they'll be releasing to the potential bond.
actually, I think it went out this afternoon.
Bond sales actually hit the market February 5th. I believe it's a Wednesday.
That's a
Wednesday. So that's when the sales and we'll see. So.
And then closing is at the end of February.
So on I think the February 24th meeting is when you'll get the final resolution to close out the sale of the bond.
And we are working in the office on where we want to invest the money when it comes in. We're working with some companies. PFM has a branch that helps with investing, and based on the draw schedule of the project, when the funds will be needed, how we can invest them until they're used up. So we're working to do that.
If you recall in the bond application, there was basically about $37 million that we're selling, but the total projects was about $39 million. So we're looking at about a $200,000 or whatever, $2 million investment return to finish those projects. So, other than that, we are moving full speed ahead with the bonds. Exciting.
Thank you. Next, moving on, a portion of our meeting, which public comment. For anyone who would like to address the board, they can do so. You can come up to the podium here. There should be a sheet of paper. If you leave your name and phone number, if you have a question that needs to be answered, someone will get back with you. At this time, it is not a question and answer period. You have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Okay. Next, Lexi, our student representative report.
Starting as always at the Lee School, the LEGO Club has begun their meetings, and the Green Club continues to collect bottle caps for additional benches at the Lee and Middle School. Green Club has also purchased items to create an outdoor habitat, which I'm sure will be very fun for the students once it's all constructed. December 19th was the first annual spelling bee, and 17 students participated. First place was 3rd grader Alina Hostetter, and second place was third grader Ethan Berman. I apologize if I mispronounced your names. January 31st is a PBIS assembly, and this will be held focusing on leadership. February 6th is the PTO Winter Carnival from 6 to 8. Moving to the middle school, NWEA testing is underway, and they have successfully completed their first semester. The geography and spelling bee went great with some really good competition. And because of all this great competition, the students really battling it out. Both geography and spelling bee took much longer than expected, which is great to see. The PTA Winterfest is Friday, February 7th, and winter sports are finally underway with the start of boys basketball and competitive cheer. Saturday, February 8th is the Odyssey of the Mind regional competition, and then that is the last for the middle school. Moving to the high school, the first semester is officially completed with only one more left for the seniors, which is very exciting. And the NWEA winter sessions open today, and all of these sessions will be able to show the progress of the students over these past few months. February is American Heart Challenge Month, and RHS is partnering with the American Heart Association to educate our students on heart health and the dangers of vaping. There will be a dodgeball fundraiser snowcoming week, and moving along with snowcoming, the game has been moved to February 18th, and the dance has been rescheduled to the 22nd at 7 p.m. in the high school gym. Lastly, auditions for the K-12 play Frozen Junior were this past week, and they were very, very successful. Many students came out, and every role was able to be filled, and it's just really great to see so many students becoming more interested in the theater department, which hasn't been as successful these past few years. So, congrats to them.
Thank you. Any questions for Lexi? Thank you. Next, superintendent and legislative update.
Legislative update, just to give the community and the board an update on some things going on in Lansing. The week of the 17th, House Bill 5127 and House Bill 5128 were passed by a bipartisan support, which basically provides some tax breaks to enterprise data centers, which are basically information centers, that big warehouses that hold data and so forth. Why this is important is because 73% of the sales and use tax in Michigan goes to the school aid fund. And last week I had an opportunity to go to the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators, and there was a legislative update, and I thought this was very interesting. All of these tax cuts that are done throughout the legislators, when you add up in the last 6 years, there's been $363 million identified with 43 bills that they don't have an identified cost of a tax cut. At the same time, and that affects the school aid fund. At the same time, $87 million for 7 bills which have a tax increase, which ultimately results in a $276 million reduction in revenue to the school aid fund, which equates to about $187 per pupil. So when you hear these tax cuts that are being done at the state legislature, I would strongly encourage you to think about the big picture impact. As we all know, schools are struggling to at least make ends meet with the amount that we've been given. We aren't even keeping up with inflation with what the state has given. On better news, I guess it's better news. Last week on Wednesday, they passed House Bill 5187 and House Bill 5188, which basically says any school aid revenue lost must result in some revenue gained. Whether they'll implement that or not, we don't know. January 10th, the first of 2 revenue estimating conferences was held. This is the conference that basically the legislators or governors use to put their budgets together. The conference indicated that there's an increase of $274 million in general fund and another $138 million in the school aid fund, for a total of $412 million in revenue that they did not expect. So when you compare last year's May revenue conference, there's an increase in money there for schools. And actually it's projected to be a 1.9% increase in 19, a 2.9 in the 2021, and a 2.4. So what does that mean? there are some pressure points that are on the school aid budget. Number one, you've got the unfunded retirement. We're currently paying 39.93-ish for every dollar. We pay basically 40 cents in a retirement tax. Some of that the state sends us the money and then we turn around and send it back to reduce that, but it's a lot of dollars for retirement. As that continues to increase, it chips away at that retirement that funding. Two things we're going to be watching is this Wednesday is the Governor's State of the State address. Obviously, roads and education were her priorities last year. I'm assuming they'll be still the same priorities this year. And then soon after that date, on February 6th, she will be releasing her proposed executive budget for next school year, the fiscal year 21, which should be really our starting point in the conversation, whether there's going to be a per pupil increase, whether they're going to change the funding for schools based on the research study that's been out there, which is also on our website if anybody would like to look at it. So stay tuned for that, because that will be a deciding. It is an election year. Typically election years are favorable for school districts because they're looking for votes. So hopefully on that. The next thing I'd like to at least educate the community on, and they may have read it, the board and the community, they may have read about it in the paper, is there is an enhancement millage that is being placed in the March election. And I just want to give the context of what this enhancement millage is. It is a county-wide Macomb County enhancement millage that, if passed, would generate approximately $400 per pupil. Those funds would stay in Macomb County. They don't go to the state. They stay in Macomb County. To get a millage on the ballot, you basically have to have, of the 21 school districts, 51% of the district's population the boards have to approve a millage or approve a resolution to ask the ISD to put this millage on the ballot. That happened, and I'm going to explain to you how that happens in just a minute. And so this coming March, on March 10th, there will be a proposal for Macomb County to ask for an enhanced millage. It is a 1.9 mil enhancement. It is strictly the money generated goes to the local school districts on a per pupil basis, and it's up to the school district to just use as a discretion. It's not necessarily a CT, though the money could be used for CT or special ed. It is an enhancement that each individual district has the ability. This flyer is on our website, and when you click on it, it actually goes to the website at the Macomb Intermediate School District that is putting the information out about this. I'm here just giving the board and the community the facts about it. So when you look at, there's a couple of flyers I'm going to put it. This is a visual, just a quick visual of Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne County. Everybody in yellow is a Macomb County school district, and it's ranked by per pupil allocation as of last year. It's not the current year. Oakland and Wayne have enhancement millages, whether it's CT, special ed. They get additional money per pupil. Macomb does not. So most of Macomb districts are at the bottom. In fact, if you look at it, there's where Richmond falls as in the bottom 52nd out of the, when you rank all the districts, we are 52 at the lowest foundation allowance. The highest, which is Bloomfield Hill, it's approximately $12,244 per pupil that has their enhancement in there, where Richmond as of last year was 78, 71. So there's a big discrepancy in how much students get per pupil and what can be offered. So this enhancement, you can see again, there are districts that are in Macomb that are higher because they were part of a legislative act that allowed them, when proposal A was put in, to collect a higher per pupil, 21J funds, et cetera, that no longer exist. But this gives you a visual. The next one I want to just show you. So this is the 21 districts, and I will increase. I know it's a little hard to read, but it's more of a visual. So you'll see there are 6 districts that have dots next to them. Initially, when this went through, those are the 6 districts that passed a resolution of the 21 that actually pushed this to be on the ballot. Anchor Bay, Clintondale, Chippewa Valley, Mount Clemens, Utica Schools, Warren Consolidated, I believe those are the 6. So when you look at it, there's the enrollment by it. This gives you the taxable value of what the property is in that area, so we can look at Richmond here. If this village were to go through, we're about $500,000 projected revenue for Richmond. Again, it's based on, it would be a 1 mil, 2 million, and 3 mil. So for the average taxable value, and again, everybody's different, but the 2 mils or 1.9 is going to be a little less than about $400 per average taxable value in this area. So just gives you, I'm sorry, no, that's the per pupil. Actually, that would be the per pupil amount that we receive on a 2 mil. So I'm going to go through some other documents so you can just visually see it. But of the 21 districts, the 6 passed the resolution. The other districts have taken no position on it and are leaving it up to the community or promoting how it would be good for them. This gives you a visual. This basically gives them projected enrollment for the first year for Richmond Community Schools. It would be about $595,000 of additional revenue if the millage were to pass over a 10-year period with inflationary index, et cetera, about 6.5 million. So on March 10th, there is a enhancement millage that is being put to the voters in Macomb County. It would affect all schools in Macomb County, including charter schools. Recently, the law was changed that allows charter schools, anytime there's an enhancement millage or a CTE millage, they also get a portion based on their enrollment of the funds. So that's it that I have for the enhancement millage. Any questions regarding the enhancement millage? So you heard tonight there's a DIA renewal on the ballot. There's an enhancement millage that is on the ballot for a 1.9 mil increase. And again, to get it on the ballot, you only need 51% of the enrollment in the county. So when you look at the districts that pass the resolution, they're larger districts. So and the county is very diverse. So you have a spectrum of support and both for and against this.
And we as a board have not taken any stance on this enhancement millage. Chris and Sherry and I attended a meeting in October, was it? Where it was discussed with all, we were at the Macomb County School Board Association dinner. And at that time, they were explaining about the millage and the districts that were in support of it. And at that time, we were looking to pass our bond, and we felt, the three of us, you were asked to vote on whether you felt your district could support it or whether as board members we would support it, right? That was the gist of what the voting was. And we just felt that we could not, in good conscience, really support that because we were trying to get our own bond passed and the message we were trying to get to our community for the things that needed to be passed here. One of the things that is key on this millage, where with our bond issue, everything that we asked for, what improvements, that sort of thing, that's what the money could be used for. This, the money can be used for anything, which includes salaries, correct?
Salaries, programs, reducing class sizes, adding programs.
Right, all of that. So, and as a board, I don't know that we might have to have a conversation in the next month if it's something that, now that our bond is passed, whether we want to talk about whether it's something we want to publicly support or not. But I know that we've had some conversations where we haven't really felt that that's something that we wanted to do. And I know Brian has been asked at superintendent meetings, there's been conversations about different districts that are, now coming forward, and they're either passing resolutions or they're participating in events that publicize this millage. So I think it's something that maybe we should have on the agenda for a next meeting, a conversation that we have as a board on whether we want to support this as a board, put something out there, or could just continue how we have been with really not saying much of anything other than Brian's update.
And I'll just close. This is a 10-year millage that, if passed, would be levied for 10 years. And so at the end of that 10 years or near, either a renewal would have to happen, or if it didn't, or if it was a renewal and it didn't go past, every district would be, you'd have this revenue that you no longer have. Part of the dilemma boards have been faced with, I don't think there's any board that wants to turn away funds. I mean, I don't think, but part of the dilemma is the problem for school structure is not at the local level. It's the way Proposal A was done and the way Lansing is choosing to fix the problem or not fix the problem. And so there are arguments on both sides of the equation of that this is not a local issue, this is a Lansing issue, and they know this and they haven't fixed it. But there's, on the flip side, Lansing's not doing it. We need to figure out how we can take care of our kids. And so that's why so there's arguments on both sides. Either way, we're asking the community in all Macomb County to have a 1.9 mil increase. So with that, I'm done with my update.
Okay, thank you. Next, items of interest from members of the board. Does anybody have anything? I have a few things. First, I did attend the geography bee at the middle school. It was very exciting, Lexi. It was interesting, some of the questions, as you looked and you wondered how the heck did those kids know the answers to those questions, but it was very well done. Second, I'd like to just give an acknowledgement to our administrative staff, which consists of Tammy, Jamie, Angela, Pam, and Judy. The last few weeks working in the administrative building has been pretty intense / tense, and they are working through some adversity, and as a board we appreciate them. We appreciate what they do for us every day, the hard work that they give us, and some of the things that they have to deal with that the average office worker does not and should not ever have to. So we thank them for that. And my last thing, we previously, up until last year, when individuals came up to the board to address us for public comments at the next meeting, whether the addressing was to board members or to the superintendent, we would give an update on what the comment was so that we could put information back out. So we are going to start that back up again. And at our last meeting, I believe it was our organizational meeting, we had a gentleman, Mr. Westerhoff, who came and addressed the board regarding his wife, who was a retired teacher, left the district in 2016. And 3 of his points, questions or concerns that he had, one was with respect to the exit interview, which his wife received 18 months after she left the district. Mrs. Westerhoff did receive an exit interview form 1.5 years after she took the early retirement money offer that the board gave, because that is when Mr. Walmsley first started doing exit interviews. This came about after a 2017-18 school year goals workshop between the board and superintendent. The board had conversation and we were looking to have these forms started. The year we were doing the workshop, Mr. Walmsley chose to give them to people who had left the district from the 15-16 school year forward. If he had not done the procedure that way, if he had done it the way the board suggested, Mrs. Westerhoff would not have received an exit interview form at all. He had questions regarding Mrs. Westerhoff's move to 3rd grade. With respect to that, Mrs. Westerhoff was one of 12 teachers who were moved that year. There were several reasons for the move, one being that our scores at the elementary building were some of the lowest in the county, and Mr. Walmsley wanted to move people into positions that would help those scores improve. Teachers that were moved that year received notice via email, and after some thought, Mr. Walmsley changed that process to be an email notification as well as a personal contact. The email procedure only has never happened since. The move that those teachers were given, every teacher was given an opportunity that they could speak to Mr. Walmsley about that move. They were given that chance. Some chose to speak with him, some chose not to. The last thing that Mr. Westerhoff discussed was his wife's evaluation. In 2016, Mrs. Westerhoff's evaluation was minimally effective due to a discipline in her file, which included actions taken by Mrs. Westerhoff during a staff meeting and for taking personal days during the school year, which is a violation of the teacher's contract. The investigation into Mrs. Westerhoff taking these personal days was started by our former superintendent, Dr. Linda Olson, and was completed by Mr. Walmsley. The instructions for the evaluation form at that time for teachers stated that if a teacher had a discipline, in his or her file, the evaluation was deemed minimally effective. Mr. Westerhoff stated that his wife had a highly effective evaluation until Mr. Walmsley made it minimally effective. In fact, Mr. Walmsley had nothing to do with Mrs. Westerhoff's minimally effective evaluation due to the fact that in the 4 domains on the evaluation, Mrs. Westerhoff had 1 highly effective and 3 effective. All teachers received an effective evaluation in the 2015 school year due to the unfortunate situation we had at the elementary school with our former principal, Paula Dowker. Other evaluations from previous years showed that Mrs. Westerhoff was rated effective, never highly effective. Next, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session. There is a sample resolution.
Pursuant to Section 8B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purposes of a student disciplinary hearing for student 032719-A.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are going into closed session. We will come back out. We have another closed session to go into, and then we will be coming out after that for action item.
Pursuant to Section 8B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act and upon request of the student parent guardian, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of conducting a hearing to consider the discipline of a student whose identity is known to the board as student 111119.
Support.
Sherry, was that you? It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We will be back to take action. Okay, we are back in open session at 9:52. Moving on to our action items. We had the robotics overnight trips. The first trip is the overnight trip to the University of Waterloo. There is a sample resolution.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the overnight field trip request to the University of Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, the approval of the first robotics overnight trip to Saginaw Valley State University, which was presented earlier. There's a sample resolution.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the overnight field trip request to Saginaw Valley State University as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we had a presentation for the varsity baseball team trip to Florida. There is a sample resolution.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the overnight field trip request to Florida as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
I will abstain from this vote.
It's It's been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, there's a sample resolution for student discipline, student number 032719A.
I motion that following a closed session hearing, the board votes to reinstate student 032719-A, consistent with the attached resolution.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, board action with respect to student 111119. There's a sample resolution.
A motion that following a closed session hearing, the board votes to reinstate student 111119, consistent with the attached documentation.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 9:54.